You know, there is a saying in Russian that goes like this. Елита едет, когда то будет, which translates to the snail is coming but who knows when it arrives. There is a new skill coming to Oldschool Runescape, but when? Nobody knows. That being said, only 1 week after the ball has passed with whopping 81% yes votes, there is a heavy debate going on what the new skill should look like. Okay, I'm done with agility training. 80 is as far as I'm gonna go. You see, this is the definition of insanity. You do over 1000 laps of the same rooftop course and you watch numbers go up. That's not a good skill, and I swear if we're gonna get equivalent of rooftops for the new skill, there's gonna be actual riots, not just in Falador. Okay, birdhouse run, herb run, and then we do content. Let's do this. Oh god, everything reminds me of her. Okay, let's talk about the new skill. I have some hot takes myself and let's see what the internet thinks of this, because boy, it's getting spicy out there. We're gonna live, we're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry, mostly cry because it's Oldschool Runescape, but here we go. So, we passed the ball, meaning the players of Oldschool Runescape are ready for something big. I think Settle is right once again in that this does actually change everything. After this skill comes out, the Oldschool Runescape you signed up for years ago is never gonna be the same. Now, you could argue it's already heading there, but the point still stands. It will probably be the single biggest update we have ever seen in this game, which means the pressure is on Jagex to get it right. Luckily, they have us, and we'll do all the hard work for them because we have too much free time. All Jagex has to do is implement those ideas. Now, what are those ideas? Well, some are bad, some are not even worth talking about, and some might work, depending on how much love we give those ideas in near future. Let's talk about the bad ones first, which by the way includes sailing as well, but we'll get into that later, I promise. Oh, aren't you the best, Amoche? I hope that's how you pronounce. Thank you for the kind words. I promise you this isn't scripted, okay? Now, Jagex had a crazy idea that the people who have max cape can keep that even after the new skill comes out, which I think is the most dumbest, overthinking, complicated idea I've ever seen. Why? So you work thousands of hours to get the cape and now suddenly you don't have time to put extra 100 hours for one more skill. I don't get that mentality. Like, if I was maxed, wouldn't it be the most amazing thing ever to try out something actually new instead of doing the same thing over and over again? And if you are maxed, look, my man, I understand if you like being tied down. It's almost 2023. It's absolutely okay if you're into that kind of thing. But we have to get over the gatekeeping conundrum in this game. The idea that everyone else has to suffer as much as you did is the most absurd backwards thinking you can come up with. If you can max out 23 skills, what's stopping you from doing one more? And if we start comparing here, you have to implement the same thing for quests now, because quest point cape is the same. A new quest comes out, you have to complete it to reclaim the cape. That's how it worked in the original game, and that's how it should keep working now. Game developers should never ever cater to the most hardcore players. That's how you drive away your core audience. The hardcore part should come as an extra package. If anything, they should cater to the other 95% who work, who have kids, friends, social life, which I know is an alien concept to some of you, but trust me, there are people out there who enjoy the weekends, believe it or not. I was blown away as well. What do you mean you don't spend 30 hours on the weekend doing grades 3 or skilling? It's weird. Oh, what? Okay, you know, it's just one of those days. So that's the first dumb idea I've seen. Please don't do this. Let's not make arbitrary rules for every situation. It doesn't have to be like this. We already have things in place. The second dumb idea I've seen is the overall thought that people don't think things through before they type those things out. Everyone's ideas are so convoluted. All the skills we have in Oldschool Runescape are really simple by design, and that's what makes them old school. That's what makes them endless. That's why you make new accounts and do it again, because even though we say how bad mining or how useless fire making is, you still make a new account and you still go to Winterdot and you still get the mining outfit. Now, I'm not saying let's bring mining 2 or fire making 2 into Oldschool Runescape, but there is some core beauty in those skills no matter how much we hate them. And you could say that core beauty is simplicity. not making things so complicated. Now on the opposite side, it has made me realize how outdated our skills are on the current market. 90% of the skills we currently have would never pass a ball today, so it's hard to fit in a new skill that feels the same theme but also feels refreshing and isn't clicking a single square for $200. Instead, I want to click multiple squares. I've seen a lot of talks about sailing. In fact, there is an 18-page sailing in-depth rework on the front page of Reddit right now that ties so deep, no pun intended, into this skill, and I guarantee you from the bottom of my heart, if I learned anything from playing this version of the game for 9 years and the original version for another 8 years, Jagex can't live up to the expectations. So even though it's a great idea, it is so complex that it doesn't naturally fit into the ecosystem we have in place. So it's kinda pointless to even go in depth if we know we can't implement those stuff. It's like using mosquito repellent in December. You don't have to do that. Why don't we start simple like the other 23 skills we have in place and see where it goes? So the next time you come up with an idea, really think it through in your head. Go through the steps and actually analyze if it goes with the core values of the game, which is make it simple and make it repeatable and endless. Okay, since we're already talking about sailing, why not go over it briefly since this is the most discussed skill so far. And let's talk about a few other ideas that the community has come up with, like druidic skills, like animal handling, archaeology, adventuring, and then I'll give you my POV of the situation. So, sailing. As I said, there was an in-depth guide that was 18 pages long talking about sailing and how it works. The first thing I noticed was how much information was gathered for the skill, and all of it seemed to be related to other skills than sailing itself, which made me realize, how do you even train sailing? I mean, the entire point is to travel across Gielinor and find islands, find caves, monsters, loot, resources, etc. Right, but now once looking through all of these ideas, I noticed a way to conveniently train your skill to 99. There is no actual training method. At that point, it might as well be another minigame. Now, we should never agree on training method being just constructing ships over and over again like you train construction right now, where you build the same goddamn table 10,000 times and suddenly you're a master of this skill. That's just an awful training method. At the start of the video you saw me completing over 1000 rooftop laps. If we ever see something like this for a new skill, it's actually doomed. I feel like it lacks any control right now. You want to add engineering to it, you want to add construction to it, resource skills, maybe add PVM elements to sailing, managing ports, and so on and so on. It's just too much for one skill. It needs a single direction, and I just don't think players are going to be happy about that. You want your cake and you want to eat it too. That being said, I do like the idea of combining multiple skills into one. I think that's a good way to salvage a lot of the dead skills, and overall the most ambitious thing all RuneScape players are searching for is value. If you do add sailing or some other skill, I think you better make sure you add at least all the resource skills into the new one to a point where training them one by one is still more efficient, but you can go out on a voyage and train mining, fishing, fletching, maybe even Slayer or agility. Now, that is good value. And you know what else is good value? Supporting Kriibus in Patreon, because you get good content for the rest of your life. Imagine! I call that value. Link is in the description. Mwah. Also, I would genuinely love to know what new skill you would like to see in the game. Let me know in the comments and we can see what people come up with. Another idea I've seen people come up with is player-owned farms, or I guess peacekeeping, ranching, breeding. People have a lot of different names for this, but the idea is pretty similar to what we already have in the original game, in RuneScape 3. Essentially, you obtain eggs or babies of animals, incubate those eggs until they hatch, build your own animal pens, you have to take care of the animals, you can wait longer and get more resources, or harvest immediately and get different resources. You can add different rarities to eggs, like dragon eggs are super rare, but you can get your own black dragon hides if you grow a dragon from baby egg to full-sized one, and so on. Now in RuneScape 3 they have it as an add-on for the farming skill, and in a sense it's really great for Iron Man, because you have another method of gathering resources like herb loss secondaries and so on. The problem I've seen with this is, however, the fact that it gets very limited and it doesn't have a lot of options for expanding besides besides adding just new creatures in. Also, we have to think about a skill that works for literally every single player, whether you are level 21 noob with 200 total level or you are maxed main account. Funny thing is, Jagex actually wanted to add this into the game. In fact, they had an entire concept thrown out when they implemented Seiya and the farming guild. Right here on this spot, I'm gonna edit that later in, don't pay attention, was supposed to come player-owned farms. Our version of that. They had everything planned out and then nothing came of it. So there's that. The final argument against this would be that it just becomes another dailyscape, and we definitely don't want that. I mean, look at Runescape 3. The game basically revolves around the 24-hour clock, or the weekly clock, or even the monthly one. We have birdhouse runs, we have herb runs, that's good enough. Next up we have Druidism, which essentially allows you to turn into multiple different variations of monsters in Killenor. It's meant to be a support role, and it's supposed to have a different meaning to combat than we currently have. For instance, let's say you get a certain druidic level, you can turn into a vampire. You can't use normal items, you can't use your inventory, but let's say in the middle of the raid you can heal your teammates to full. After 15 seconds you turn back to a human being, and this concept can be added to basically any monster in the game. The creator of this concept gave examples like blood whales, you can suck life out of your enemies and gain that back as HP. You can turn into a snail that leaves a trail of healing liquid behind as you move, and it also works as a poison against enemies. There's a lot of different monsters you can turn yourself into that give benefits, but you lose access to your normal inventory. To use the spell you need a pouch, which requires a beast ingredient, druidic pouch, and some shards. So in a sense it's a very similar concept to summoning, but instead of summoning monsters for you, you instead turn into those monsters. So if you remember, we had like 50 different monsters in the original summoning skill, and you yourself can turn into all of those things now and cast special attacks and abilities. It has the spirit of summoning, but it adds new concepts like shapeshifting, new spellbooks and so on, and this clue scroll also has a third age in it. Nope, never mind. And lastly, we have Archeology. This is pretty much copy 1-to-1 from Runescape 3, and I like it. I had a chance to try it out myself. I trained my Archeology from 1 to like 50, and I must say I really enjoyed it. It has a very simple concept of finding treasure and turning that into either experience or valuable loot. And that's why I think it will work really well with Oldschool Runescape, because on the surface level it's so simple skill. Everyone can get into this, but once you get higher levels it starts to get more complex and the benefits start to get bigger. I'm not gonna go deeply into the skill because it's been out for multiple years now, but if you wanna dwell deeper, you can literally try it out yourself. I highly recommend. It was one of the few things that I actually enjoyed about the game when I played it. Now, there are a lot of other good ideas as well, and I'll leave the link in the description for you to check those out. But before we end off, I'll throw in my 2 cents to the new skill as well. And I have it very simple. It's straightforward, it's not very big, and it satisfies in a way everyone. So here is my idea how to develop a skill in Oldschool Runescape. I present you the Ben is system, or as I like to call it, powerfully evolving, nonchalant, interesting skilling. Now first of all, this is very serious. I don't want anyone to make fun of this. We're here to learn. Secondly, how does Ben is work? Like I said, the idea itself is not very big, but it's supposed to satisfy everyone. You want that trust to make sure it's clean, it's coordinated, it works. I don't like when my skill ideas are just dangling there. It has to be erect. So here are some pointers on how to get Ben is to work. Firstly, you have to make sure to not get so ambitious with the idea that it's almost impossible to implement. Like I said before, yes, it would be fun to see sailing in game, but I just don't see Jagex having the engine work to make that happen. I mean, we sometimes need months of engine work to get simple quality of life changes. Making an entire skill from scratch and it working with the rest of the game is a tall task. Less is oftentimes more. Secondly, please don't make another skill where I have to do thousands of laps of rooftops or construct oak tables for hundreds of hours. That's just not fun. And finally, although minigames are awesome, I hope to God we don't see the new skill as a minigame. Yes, it saved fire making with Winter Dot. Yes, it saved fishing with Temperas, and yes, it saved runecrafting with Gardens of the Rift. But that also meant those skills were dead on release. And that's the only reason those minigames exist. Actual meaningful training methods are the way to go. If I I had to choose one skill to be an example out of the 23 we have, I think farming is a good building stone, because you gain experience through hundreds of different meaningful ways. You can plant trees, you can plant herbs, bushes, whatever you want. You can do contracts, you can fight farming bosses. It's fun and you don't have to sit there for 10 hours clicking on the same thing over and over again. Whatever happens though, at the end of the day, we have to keep in mind that literally none of the skills we currently have in the game would pass the 70% threshold to pass. So take everything you see with a grain of salt, because like I said at the beginning of the video, this new skill will literally change everything we know about the game. I love you all for now, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video. Please consider subscribing to the channel and like the video to support me and this channel. Okay, bye for now. Mwah.